Warm welcome. I'm just going to get my slides up to just give you a little bit of background of who we have on this amazing panel today. And we have Dr. Curtis Hart-Kelly. Curtis, good evening to you. How are you?
Hi, how's everybody? Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I'm nearby to the other KOTESOL folks. Dave and I are here from Japan.
Yes. And I'll be coming back in a minute to ask all of you the question, how knowing about the brain has really forged your pathways through life. So let me introduce George Kokolas. Good morning, George.
Good morning from the Southern Europe. My picture is broadcasted via Athens, Greece. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. We have a really sunshine and a very spring weather, even in the middle of November. And it's really great to be here again. I started these presentations at 8 o'clock my time. So yeah, I had the first chance to meet the Korean teachers, and the event has been amazing so far and very interesting talks, and it's a real pleasure.
Thank you, George. We'll be back in a minute. María Laura, buenos días. ¿Cómo estás?
Buenos días. Good morning here in Buenos Aires.
What time is it for you?
Well, it is 6 or 7 a.m. now. I have 6 a.m. Yes. How are you? Welcome.
Very well. Thank you for waking up with us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Yes. Welcome. Now, coming back to all of you, I would love to know how knowing about the brain has really forged your journey and your pathways, and how did you get to this point? So, Curtis.
Oh boy, it's for me, it started in the 1990s, and I've been learning more and more about the brain, and almost every week something new comes up in this exciting area of science that neuroscience, that teaches us about better ways to teach. And I think the first thing for me that really got me hooked was that we didn't know what sleep was a long time ago. We didn't know what purpose sleep served. Excuse me. Sorry, there's some noise in the background. Okay, we didn't know what purpose sleep serves, but then we discovered that when we're asleep, our brains are actually more active than when we're awake, and that's when all new knowledge gets recorded into deep memory. So sleep is absolutely essential for our students. That hooked me right there. That little bit of information. Okay.
Wow. Thank you for that, George. How about for you?
Well, I think what Curtis has just described for me, I will start with the very, very basics, and maybe in a way it designates or defines a personal journey for me from theory to practice. And I'll explain what I mean. I was very much into the theoretical part of teaching. Maybe you have seen in my CV that I'm also a certified level 5 Delta whatever teacher. So I was very much into this theory methodology, but I could feel that there was something missing from my personality and my development as a teacher. So I knew that there was something wrong. And from experience, again, I could feel that there were certain moments in the classroom that I wasn't adequate with my perfect knowledge of methodology or whatever to move on. So that's when I started back in 2012, reading about the brain. There was this amazing book that literally changed my life. Curtis and you and Laura knows about it, Brain Rules by John Medina. I must have read it something like 5 times, because in that book, I could actually find answers to what was happening to me, to what was happening in the classroom. And then, of course, people should know that I met you after 5 years, that it was more than a happy coincidence, because you were a practitioner that could bring the academy into the classroom through neuroscience, and with this amazing neural language method that you have, that I will keep on repeating. It's about right now getting as much as you can from all the science out there, so to help you with your teaching. So through coaching techniques that you have, through a lot of theories about the brain, I have learned a lot about how our brain works. This helped me enormously as a teacher of English, as a practitioner of other things as well. So yeah, only benefits. Bottom line, I got in my personal, practical life as a professional from knowing about the brain. And I will delve more into this, maybe now from a different perspective that we will talk later, that of positive psychology. But definitely, for me, it's a must for the 21st century teacher to have at least being aware, at least, or having a minimal knowledge of what's going on here.
Yes, yes. And I think you've hit upon the word awareness. And I think this is something that, we really want as educators to be enhancing how we are aware first, and then how we can bring that awareness to them. And, in maybe scientific terms, we would call it metacognition. We in layman's terms would call it conscience and awareness. Everybody in the audience, with pleasure, if you'd like to share with us as well, if you've had that sort of brain journey and it's impacted your life to know about the brain, do share with us in the chat box. And we're going to see later if we can actually get some of you onto the microphones and share maybe what you're thinking about this particular way of bringing the neuroscience, bringing the cognitive awareness into the classroom more and more. Very much want to hear that. Maria Laura, how was your journey? Because you come in from a slightly different angle.
Yes, I do. But I do feel identify with you because, yes, I come from the translation world. Yes, so I am a translator, and then I became a teacher. So, and that was thankful for you, Rachel, because I met you, and as George said, by coincidence. But now I think, or I ask myself, is it really coincidence, or is it that we are looking forward to changing ourselves and changing also or being part of the change, I would say. Yes, because I believe we are all diverse, and how can we play together? How can we get together and be different as a team? So teachers and students, we all together, yes, collaborators. So I do believe it is integrating our past knowledge, our skills, and coming with innovation, with how we can be part of the change that we know society is calling for. Yes, it's not just school, but it's something wider. It's society, and we are part of that change. I am glad, and it's collaboration.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to say, I would love to acknowledge your brain, because translators and interpreters, you have to have the fastest brains on earth to be able to simultaneously translate and interpret. And
well, it is training.
Well, switching.
Yeah, but that was maybe that was one of my questions. Say, how can we do that? I mean, anyone can do that. So it's training, it's knowledge, it's training, yes. But brain is awesome, really. So if we can do that, we can do many things. Yes?
Absolutely.
Education. So there is no limit.
What can we not do?
Definitely.
Limitless.
And Rachel, maybe now it's a perfect moment to mention something that I learned from you, and it literally debunked all this prejudice that we had regarding our mother languages. So yeah, I come from a generation of teachers that it was almost like a punishment to speak your own language inside the classroom. But I learned from you and through neuroscience that that's the natural way for the brain to go. You will first associate the foreign language with your own native language. And now all these mediation activities, which is becoming like a pandemic in teaching with a good, let's say, connotation of the word, it becomes very popular among teachers, comes now to verify exactly this thing. So translators, maybe here's your moment, Marilau, now trying to correlate, because that's the first stage that every single brain of a non-native speaker has to go through, correlated with the native language, it's all your own language, and then move on and advance. There's nothing wrong with that. It has been penalized in the past.
Absolutely. And also, the whole topic of translanguaging, which I think is still seen as a little bit taboo, but actually it helps the brain to get used to code switching. So, you know, we could go a little bit into español ahora, María Laura, tú y yo, and then we could go back to English, y después podemos pasar al español, then we could go back to English, and, you know, training the brain just to go, y dopo possiamo passare all'italiano, e un po' di francese, un po'. You know, it really is, it's like brain gym. It's phenomenal.
It is healthy. Yes, scientists say it's healthy. Yes, but you know that brain doesn't really, I mean, we've got some content which is separated, but that's not the idea. So we've got a lot of content and it is integrated. And so with this globalization, how come that we don't know this is German, this is French? No, we are part of the same world. We are part of the same, we are creating a culture. Yes, so everyone has a key role.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, talking about key roles, let's come into your passionate brain topics, because I know you've all got different kind of passions and focuses. So Curtis, let's come to you first, because I know you're absolutely in love with the social and emotional brain.
Yeah, particularly, you know, the social brain. Phil Carr wrote an article recently about how neuroscience really isn't teaching us anything new or changing our field and teaching language. And in a way, he's right. But what it is doing, it's giving us the reasons why these things we've always sort of believed without having proof of are really important. And one is that if students aren't engaged, if they're not motivated by what they're learning, they can't learn it. In fact, let me share a screen, a little bit from some screen here.
And while you're doing that, can I just jump in? Because what you've just said actually applies to many things regarding the brain. For example, meditation. We always kind of knew it was good for us, but now we actually get the neuroscience saying this is what it does. So Curtis, just to say, it's not only with teaching, it's also in many different things in our lives that we're seeing that.
Yeah, exactly. And so there are some things that I'm learning from neuroscience that I would never have learned otherwise. That's really been supporting our intuitions. Like for me, this one, that something has been meaningful to be learned. Like here's a typical English lesson in a book, Japanese book. It's used in high schools. And if you look at it, the whole thing is organized by language, because that's been the bias in our field. We're teaching English, so the way that language is organized should be the way that we design our classes. And that doesn't take anything into account about learners and their needs. So we're taught how to do language analysis. We're taught how to do task analysis in you know, our in language teaching programs. But then people like Imordino Yang and Damasio tells us that emotion is extremely important part of our lives. It's not just an extra. It's something that steers us through life. It's a thing that, you know, keeps us away from the cliff edge or makes us walk into the store when we see 50% sale or something like that. In fact, I'll let everybody read this quote from Mariella Kokolas Yang from her book on emotion and learning yourselves.
And I think we've got many, many experts worldwide, Curtis, not only this expert, but we've got many experts all over the world demonstrating this. And I think definitely we know that emotion is the chemistry, is the imprinting.
Yeah, well, Mary Helen works with Damasio, and he's considered, maybe except for Joseph Ledoux, well, I'd say even more so, Antonio Damasio is considered the world expert in emotion. He's at the University of San Diego. So basically they're saying no emotion, no learning. Now emotion doesn't mean like anger and jealousy and those things are feelings. Emotion just means something clicks in your brain and your brain says, oh, this is meaningful. This is something I'm interested in. And unless students have that, they can't learn. So emotion informs us what's learning. And we've always had this view of education being like this too. The teacher is speaking about something and it's going into students' heads. We're trying to transfer information into heads as if this works, but it doesn't. So now that we know that emotion is what is probably the most important factor in learning, that something is meaningful, instead of just doing task analysis and language analysis, I think we have to do emotion analysis. and look at what our learners are experiencing in every single moment of class. And it's far more important than deciding, well, I'm going to teach nouns this week and verbs next week. So there. Let's get away from this kind of language teaching and into the thing that concentrates on the student experience. And here's an example. I wrote a book, and just to make an interesting activity, talk about WH questions instead of the one above, having students show photos to each other. People love to talk about their photos and have their partners ask WH questions. So even just a small change like that can have a significant impact on learning. So instead of choosing what language to teach and then thinking of activities, find good activities and then figure out what language to teach. So that's my comment on emotion. And it's been one of the
Yes, you've shocked me. You've absolutely shocked me, because you haven't mentioned Lieberman, and I know that you're such a fan of Lieberman, and you haven't mentioned him.
Well,
I'm shocked.
I decided to hit emotion right now, but yeah, the social brain is another one. That's been my big thing the last 2 years. Matthew Lieberman discovered that we have this mentalizing network in our brain. We're always watching other people. And the social brain is really powerful. It's part of the default mode network. And the social connection in the classroom is extremely, I'd like to talk about that too, but let's give us some other people a chance, and I'll come back. I've got a
We'll be back. No, you see, I was just so shocked that you hadn't talked about Lieberman. I know how much you love him. Okay, we'll save that for next. We'll keep our audience on time to focus there. George, you've come into this new pathway. May I ask you to share? Where are you on this pathway?
Oh, absolutely. But we need to stress to the people who are listening now that here we're not talking about magic wands. Curtis has described another pathway. I'm going to describe another pathway. And it's important for the teacher to realize that we should be entering a new process, which is personal. It's depending on what we like, what really touches our brain and heart. But it's a process. Nothing is happening with them.
May I challenge you?
Of course you may.
May I say that actually I think the teacher is the magic wand. The educator becomes the magic wand. Now I'll throw it back to you.
And this is where you give me, this wonderful pass to elaborate a little bit and say that after you open a path regarding brain, which it's my path that I'm still on, I have found another path which is parallel without overlapping and has to do with positive psychology. And one of the main reasons was that I started, overcoming this basic plain idea that positive psychology is simply about laughing and having jokes or smiling. Yes, it is, but not only that. I was fascinated by the fact, why did people come up with positive psychology? And it was because they were literally fed up with the negative psychology. I mean, all the academy, all the articles, all the research was focused on people who were, of course, seriously depressed or had something negative. And a bunch of people basically selling money and success. Mihaly said, hang on, guys, why does it always have to be negative? Why the very same brain cannot think about something positive? And that's how they started realizing through experiments and research that you are simply one click away from thinking all as positive. But first, you need to embrace the negative as well. This is the catch here, that we do not simply ignore the negative things around us, or maybe things that make us feel bad or negative. We simply regulate them. We simply accept them, embrace them, and regulate them. And this is my first key as an apocalypse to me: self-regulation and self-reflection, which comes very much in accordance with what both Mariella and Curtis said. In order to get into a social intelligent mood, the first thing you need to do is stop and think what I like, what I want, what is really my passion, what is the meaning, as Curtis said, of what I do. And I dare say that many educators do not this in any kind of class, not only in the English class. They only focus on the curriculum, they tick up the boxes, but it takes literally 10 or 15 minutes or maybe one session to simply ask the kids, as you do in your classes, Rachel, what do you want? What would you like? What do you expect from this session? And it's at that moment that people start and think, and they realize that they could simply take it from a more positive perspective. But these are processes that need to be fostered and in a way implemented and practiced by the teachers themselves. That's why awareness is very important. Positive psychology is a practically new field. It's overlapping a lot with psychology and philosophy as well, but teachers can find real gems in all the articles, in all the research, which is right there out for the people to read. But I think the first thing that we should all do is stop, think, and realize that maybe you can take it in another perspective, in a more positive way. But it has to be a conscious and meaningful act. This is what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah. And just to jump in, apologies that I jumped in a little bit sooner. One thing you said there is about teachers just following curriculum. And I do want to kind of jump on the defense of teachers, because that's literally the job of what they have to do, what they have to deliver. So to have to then stand back and think, okay, how can I do this differently? Sometimes teachers don't have time, they don't have the energy, they don't have the skills. So I think this is where, it's how we can help to not only have that structured, horrible sort of curriculum in the background, which we've got to deliver sometimes, which we really have problems to deliver because of time or constraints. And then on the other side, how to facilitate the skills and the knowledge to actually do it in a slightly different way that, as you said, is going to provoke the right effect, which is what we want. Now, the other thing just to add for that are the ants, those negative thought patterns. And it really is the case that the more we are coming into the negative and we're focused on the negative, that's what we are enhancing and reinforcing. And the more we train ourselves to come into the positive and look for the positive, it's a brain training. And then we start to really reinforce the positivity, and it becomes a habit. And positive becomes a way of life. It becomes an attitude. Habits then become attitudes, become personalities, become literally drenched in us. So George, fascinating, and I'm excited.
If I may say something, so the people and the audience could actually start getting the hang of what we are talking about here. Now I'll leave my positive psychology hat and I will put the brain neuroscience hat and say it's something that you actually challenged me to learn, that our brains love routines. So every time there is something new which might alert us for a change, it's very natural that you feel the fear, intimidation, or even reluctance to do it. It's very natural. So we need this conscious act in order to overcome it and go to the positive. And the second thing that comes again from neuroscience, it's a book that Curtis knows that I love, from Mr. Hanson, Hardwiring Happiness, is that this proclivity for negativity is something that goes back in the prehistoric times. It's again something natural. Yeah. Chances are that you would think more of the negative than of the positive. So you need again this conscious act to change this.
Yeah, because it's part of the survival instinct, isn't it?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
It keeps us alive. Yes. Grateful, George. Let's come to Mariella. Now, Mariella, you actually have done a master's with neuroscience, and I know that you're really fascinated in this sort of how to help the translator, how to really enhance that sort of learning process. So what is your particular love in this neuroscientific world?
Well, you know that I've been doing my homework because I've been taking down notes of what you have been saying so that I don't lose my ideas. Yes, it is interacting and it is integrating. If we want to be or to bring out good translators, we need how to integrate cultures. because it's not translating from A to B, from B to A. It is just how cultures get to know each other. And that's a really very, very big challenge. So moving forward and contributing to what you have said, George has said that we've got the possibility to focus on, to think about negative side or positive side. So we know now, we can know from science that the parts of the brain that focus, for example, onto the negative, onto the past, when we keep on thinking about the past, are the same parts of the brain that can help us to think about the future, to think about how we can go through situations, difficult situations, with a positive eye, with a positive perspective. So in order to have other perspectives, we need to have also, or it helps us to have commands of different languages, knowledge about different cultures, because that is enriching. So that's a very good kind of information that I would like to share with you, that as we have the possibility, natural tendency to think about the past, to think about to regret, to whatever, okay, we've got also the possibility, a great possibility to think and to move forward with innovation. And adding to what Curtis has said, with emotions, that there is no learning without emotion. Yes, I couldn't agree more. As you know, with this pandemic, now we have been used to teaching, seeing our students with masks to say, how can we see emotions here? And we see emotions, eyes speak. So it is very, very, very important. I myself, I work at university, so my students are 20, 22, 23, some are 40, but, you know, and I think we are being part of the change as grown-ups. So we are dealing with this part of the change from one day to the other, learning from one day to the other. But if we focus on teenagers, if we focus on kids, they are great learners and they are great teachers. The capacity to learn is endless, and the capacity students, and kids have to teach is also endless. If we are aware, if we pay attention to what they are saying with their eyes, that we can see on top of the masks. So it's not only about changing tasks or activities. It is a process, as George said. So we've got information, we've got data, we've got tasks, we've got activities, but the thing is to integrate. It's not just one very small detail, but it is every classroom has details and every classroom has activities. But how is it that we can be part of a process? Because we live in a process.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as you're talking, Mariella, it reminds me of when I was living in Germany. And in those years that I was living in Germany, I was always fascinated that the Germans greet you, many, with their eyes. So they shut their eyes and open their eyes, and it's like a greeting. And for me, it was like, goodness, what is this? And for years and years and years, it troubled me, because obviously it's not part of my culture. It's not part of anything in the Spanish or Italian or any of the cultures I'd been in. Now we can see how useful that is in times of mask bearing, just to be able to greet with our eyes and to be able to say, hi, I see you. Wow. So yes, I totally agree. We're reshaping the way that we communicate now. And as you say, when we can't see each other, we're finding other ways to really reach out and communicate and to speak with the eyes as well. And I think for us, coming back to Curtis, you know, this emotional social side of the neuroscience, it really is that sensory side that we're developing more. So we know we have the task priority network, which is very much that logical, analytical, structured, you know, thought that we have this default mode network, which is our amazing sort of social emotional part. And they do say that one shuts out the other. And what we have to really do, I think, is start to understand how we can function with both, fully functioning. That's the mission, I think, that we're going to. Curtis, what do you think?
Oh, that's a great point. And in fact, just in the last couple of weeks, there's been kind of a retreading that actually our default mode in our social network may not really be shut out, like Matthew Lieberman says, by the other parts, that actually they can be integrated in certain kinds of tasks, like talking about the future. We're both using our cognitive part and our default mode network, the daydreaming part, which handles all the what ifs thinking.
Yep.
You know, what if this was true? So yeah, Mary Helen Imardito Yang again, she was interviewed by Robert Murphy recently. You can find this online. And she talked about how getting both the social or the default mode network, the what if part and the cognitive part activated at the same time leads to better brains and better thinking. And we have to do that somehow in our educational system. Wow, it's pretty deep. I've got to go back and listen to that podcast again myself. I'll type in the link later sometime. But yeah, the social brain is active almost all the time. And what it's doing is the mentalizing network. We're always watching other people's faces, their eyes, their expressions, and trying to figure out what they're thinking or how they're feeling, you know, how they're reacting to us. And that's why teaching classes on Zoom has been so hard for us, because people's reactions are like a half second later, or we see pixelated faces, or they might be, you know, just see the top of some students' heads. So we can't really pick up our reactions. So our brain's going to overdrive. That social mentalizing network goes into overdrive trying to figure out what people are really thinking. You know, they might be looking off to the side because their screen is here, but their camera's over here. And it's really been hard for us to adapt to. But I've noticed myself, after teaching online for a year, I've got it. My brain's adapted. And that just shows the plasticity of the brain. I don't get that Zoom exhaustion anymore.
I love it. And just what, you know, reinforcing what you're saying, coaching, Curtis, is this great tool for teachers and educators to bring out this social emotional side. And Richard Boyatzis has been really coming into the neuroscience of coaching for years. And this is what he says: we have to be using both. We have to use task priority network plus default mode network. We have to be pushing all those triggers. If I want my learner to go into logical analytical, I need to know how to do that. If I need to bring out their emotions, I need to know how to do that. If I need to pump both, I need to know how to do that. So absolutely, you know, this is the educator of the 21st century, knowing how to provoke both and when we need them. Now, I want to say, I'm just having a little interlude from you guys, because I'm coming to Namiko. Namiko, thank you so much for your contribution there. And yes, you're saying that technology has actually shed light on what we need to focus more on. And yes, empathy. Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Namiko. This is where we're really seeing. And I think it's about also understanding that we're not going to get rid of technology. And in fact, we need technology, and we've needed it through the pandemic. And now it's how to be able to develop our skills to use it with empathy. Now, those of you who know me probably know that I actually don't like empathy. I prefer compassion. When you think about neuroscience of empathy, it's I feel what you feel. When you think about neuroscience of compassion, it's first I feel what you feel, but then how can I help you? And I actually think now we need to come into being compassionate educators, not only empathetic, but very much compassionate. And of course, I'm going to be plugging the coaching all the time. Curtis, thank you for that. Let's come over to George. So George, what's your response to all of this?
My response is that empathy is the key, but I would like to put some more energy on this panel by throwing another keyword that I think resonates a lot with what Curtis and Mariella said before. And it has to do how we are wrapping up all this. And I think we're wrapping it up with some successful communication as well, because when I do feel the empathy or I do feel the compassion, then according to this new setting and these new situations, I have to be very, if I'm allowed to say, accurate or effective with my communication. And this has to do a lot with the social brain. And I'm talking about, a little bit of positivity as well. It has been proved, Goleman says that when you get into a class and you see a smiley face, automatically your brain gets in such a great mood simply with one smile. With one little smile can actually make the difference, even in learning. So the way we communicate, whatever we want to convey, with the focus on the student first, listening to them, as Mariella said, what they want, actually giving them the floor, a little bit of self-reflection, focusing on the positive. For example, I totally encourage, because this is what I'm doing now, as part of my quest, experiment a little bit with my colleagues, with my kids as well. I show them the circle of the positive, of the character strengths and the virtues. And this is an amazing lesson to start a year, which comes from the Character Strength Institute, which is like fostering positive psychology. And people, through self-reflection, they start identifying, I might be resilience, or I might see perspective, or I might see compassion or empathy, because all these virtues and strengths are there. So I think all this comes through communication a lot as well. And as teachers, as you said, the perfect profile of the modern 21st century teacher should be also a very good communicator, not only in terms of grammar, syntax, or vocabulary, but what is the good wrapping up of this present that you're offering to your students? Is it attractive? Would it be appealing to them? And it all has to do with the way you live and communicate. As you said in the introduction, you need to feel it first. You need to enhance it so to be able to transmit it and convey it to the students. So I think communication plays a very important role.
Can I add one more word?
Absolutely.
This is from Louis Cozzolino, one of the great psychologists and people interested in the brain and learning. And he said attachment. And there's actually something called the attachment theory, which is that basically learning, we evolved to learn in our tribes, hundreds of thousands of years ago. And our caretakers were the people that that taught us to learn, and we became attached to them. So that's how we could learn. And our survival was dependent on them. But also they're teaching us how to survive was part of their survival later when we started taking care of them. So basically the classroom and education all comes from that kind of a model, so that young children attached to their teachers and even young adults attached to their teachers is just a basic process that's happening all the time in education. And we should be engendering that.
May I challenge that theory, Curtis?
Mm-hmm.
May I challenge that? Where does the autonomous learner come in then?
Oh, well, part of the training of the attached learners to make them autonomous. So they can be successful adults and then take care of us when we get old.
Right. Yes.
That
was just the thought that came to my mind there, because obviously, we're promoting
like that,
promoting the autonomy is also a key part of the process. So yes, there might be attachment at certain points, but it's also learning to encourage to let go. And I think that's something that maybe in our society and the world we live in today, that we're not doing with learners enough of. And learners are too attached to us, in the extent that they think that we should be doing everything for them, we should even be learning for them. And that sort of skill of throwing it back at them and bouncing it back and being a soundboard and being a facilitator and saying, no, I want you to use your brain. That's yes, absolutely.
And if I may say something, Rachel, that verifies what Curtis said, remember, all of you, I guess you will agree with me, back in March 2020, we were all in panic with this new situation. And what were the experts saying? They were saying, try to talk and speak and discuss it with your colleagues. So to form this attachment, and through this attachment, through people of this discussion, sharing, worrying, and all this interaction, we created attachment with some people who unofficially became our mentors. And through practice and autonomy, as you said, that's how we learned and reached the point after 1 year to say, I have no problem with Zoom. It's fantastic. I can talk with Argentina, I can talk with Japan, I can talk with Korea, and it's really great. I can read the emotions, kids can have fun now. There are so many ways, but remember, 1 year ago, we didn't have that. We were all in panic, but through this attachment, I think, through sharing and collaboration and communication, we now reached after 1 year and say, bring me more Zoom, bring me more classes, and I can do it. Yeah.
May I confess? I wasn't in panic in March 2020.
Okay,
because
I
you
was.
are the neuro-language. You were the neuro-language expert. That's why.
Well, it's
and
interesting.
You became
because...
my mentor as well. Trying to copy. Yeah.
No, what's interesting is, I think, Mariella, you mentioned it earlier, and it was something I was also going to bring to Curtis back. You talked about the predictive brain. And this is something, Curtis, that you've written. I think one of your issues was about that capacity of the brain to predict. And I have to share, and I've shared this, I think, in many occasions, that in February 2020, I'd been to Panama and came back from Panama. And as soon as we were in Panama off the plane, they were shooting temperature guns at us. That was in February. That was before anything ever happened. My brain went into predictive. And from that temperature shooting, I knew something was coming. And from February to March, that's when I mentally started preparing myself. So I think, yes, George, I was maybe a little bit of ahead. And then you're right. Then it was about that capacity to be able to share, to calm, to help people to get through. And I think, yes, it is. And how amazing the brain is to be able to subconsciously start predicting. Mariella, that's what you were saying before. Mariella, I'm going to bring you in to sort of comment to everything that's happening at the moment, because there's so much happening.
I know.
You're our summarizer, yes.
Because I want to contribute to what Curtis has said. So I said this one. I can share my notes to you after this. Okay. Yes, contributing to first, I'm to what George has said with smiling. We've got the mirror neurons. So I believe it's not just the process we get and we learn without just knowing, but it's emotions that we can. If we are happy, people who are around us will be happy as well. So again, it's about integration. And what Curtis has said about the attachment, I would like to add. I think he was trying to say also the sense of belonging, to motivate that we belong to the same team. We are all on the same ship, let's say. Yes, we should not feel alone. We are not alone. So I think one of the things that made us panic at the beginning was that we are alone. We cannot connect. They are far away. We live. I'm living in Buenos Aires. I say, my kid, my daughter, Valentina, a 9-year-old girl, said she wanted to be with her friends. That they live near home, but they were distant. So she was having that idea of, I feel alone. So no, we are not alone. So that sense of belonging, boosting the sense of belonging, I think is a must. And also contributing to one of what one of the people in the audience has written down about technology, I believe the key thing is human value. We have technology, but we should not lose human value. Technology without human value is just a tool. So technology helps us, and we need technology, but without moving aside from human value. And I would like to share with you a contrast or comparison I make with some companies I go to, because I work in some companies, and I see human resources departments are focusing on talent, how to bring out talent. They know the greatest asset they have is people. They do not say workers anymore. They say collaborators, and they now say people. So they focused on customer experience, user experience. Now they are focusing on the employee experience. And we need to focus on student experience, as Curtis has said at the beginning, I think. Yes, he said something. So I believe companies with this social responsibility, corporate policies and all that, they are taking ideas from school, from teachers, from the interaction, teachers and students and families. So when they focused on the talent, because they really give importance to human value, that's the difference they make against their competitors. Let's say I know I'm being a little bit corporate, I don't know, profile here, yes, but the thing is that I would like to share with you that companies are realizing that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what you've said as well, technology can do many things, but we are wired to be connected, and we are wired to be human. That's where we are. And that's who we are, the essence, the holistic human.
Yeah, and the importance of being good, to have that skill to ask proper questions, so that we avoid the directive style. Yes. So again, companies are doing like that. They are creating this concept of a leader that has moved out of the idea of you need to do that. Let's make this. Let's do this like this, like this. Let's make these decisions. No, it's just bringing out questions and questions and questions, so we all grow. Yes.
And I would say there, Maria Laura, that is very much neuro leadership, which is what David Rock does. And David Rock, I mean, the whole concept of quiet leadership, neuro leadership, absolutely phenomenal. If any of you in the audience are interested, do have a look at that. Now, talking about the audience, just want to take a few seconds. Hamim, you're saying that some of your students connect with you at midnight, very late at night. I always think that, you know, as teachers, educators, we have such a caring side to us that often when that happens, we feel obliged to reach out. Now, I do think it's about also each and every one of us finding our borderlines. And yes, sometimes I have the same thing. You know, I might have somebody contacting me at midnight and I'm thinking, ooh, but if I feel it's something very important, I would definitely reach out and say, hey, don't worry, I can help in this way. Or I might say, very late, may I respond tomorrow? And just that acknowledgement that I've seen what you've written, but at this point in time, it's not the right time. So I think it's as well how we then communicate back with people that are obviously in need, because if somebody is sending me a message at that time, they obviously need something or they think they need. And then it's how we then handle that in a very kind and compassionate way that's also kind to us. And just coming to Namiko, I think you also said that now the educator, it's about showing our vulnerabilities. And I'm going to throw that to the panel. What do you all think about that? Curtis?
Oh, yeah. There's something called psychological leveling, you know. There's certain cultures where the teacher has to be way up here and the student should be down here. And I'm not against that, but I'm much more, maybe because my American background, that teachers and students should be like this, that we should be advisors, coaches, not godlike informers. So to cause that kind of psychological leveling in a country like Japan, that is very hierarchical, I accent my mistakes. Sometimes I make mistakes in Japanese that are funny on purpose. So the students can laugh at me a little bit and see that I'm vulnerable and thus feel a little bit more at ease with me. And I've got a story, something that happened. I was teaching a class of Japanese second year junior college students. There's 15 of them in this room where I'm teaching them English, and suddenly my phone rings. I didn't have the silencer on it. I thought, oh, this is a good chance for me to show them how to answer in English. So I pick up the phone and said, hi, hello, this is Curtis Kelly speaking. And all these 15 women, it's a women's school, were watching me. And the person on the other line was one of the students from that class who was absent. I said, hi, Mr. Kelly. I'm sorry I'm not there, but I overslept. So I decided to stay home instead of going to school without makeup. Oh, really? Okay, well, thanks for telling me. I told the class what this person said and hung up. I said, wow, students are so brave these days, almost arrogant in a way, or to tell a teacher, even though she knows that I'm teaching a class, to interrupt my class and say that she's not going to come because she overslept. Wow, these days students are so brave and not rude, but well, and a student rose there and said, no, Mr. Kelly, you don't understand. She didn't call you just to tell you that. She would never have said that to another teacher. The whole motive behind that phone call was showing that she trusted you. And that's why she did it. And I grew up a little bit that day.
Wow. Wow. What a beautiful story. Wow. And yes, how amazing that sort of her feeling that she was accessible, that you could be accessed and she could share with you exactly what had happened to her and be honest about it, not have to lie. Wow. Love it. And I love what you said, yes, about becoming a coach. That coaching approach is coming into that equality, equal status all the time, co-creation all the way through. So love it, Curtis, absolutely. George, what do you think about vulnerability for us?
I know that Curtis has a thing for stories, and I talked about this being like a lifelong process. So I'm going to respond with another story, which is stuck on my mind from my from my personal experience. So I want you to travel back in time in 2002, a cold night in January 2002. It was my first time that I was arriving in Madrid, in Spain. The problem was that night that I arrived at midnight, I was extremely tired. I was really sick. I almost had high temperature. I was sneezing. I was a mess. And not only that, I was feeling so insecure. I had a very important meeting the other day. I was very stressful. All the negativity of the world was right there in my face, that night. So once I go out from the airport, I still remember it. I see, I think she was a lady from Peru, and she was wearing a uniform, a t-shirt, that at the back was having the following phrase: Estoy por ayudarte. I'm here to help you. And only by reading this phrase, my mood changed completely, because then I felt the attachment, then I feel the connection, and I felt I didn't know the lady for the first time. It was part of her job, but I felt the security that in this difficult moment, there's someone for me to help me. Simply grab me a taxi, or I don't know, say like welcome, a really nice word. And this brings me to what I want to say. I think the moral of the story is the teacher, there's another word stuck on me, should be a facilitator today, should be the one who constantly, every single day, emits, gives away the meaning, I'm here to help you, because this makes people and students feel secure. And then is when they're going to call you at home, Curtis, and say, yeah, because they trust you. And this is the first, I think, interpersonal relationship we need to build. And another moment, which was again revealing, and I feel I need to say, since you're having a panel of English teachers, I grew up as a trainer, and it was like a dictation. The Common European Framework says everything and it's perfect and you have to do. Well, I did read again the Common European Framework, and it simply sets some objectives and says very clearly, I don't care how you're going to reach these objectives. The Common European Framework never indicates what to do in the classroom. So the change has changed almost overnight right now, and I'm stressing again the need for awareness beyond the classical techniques, the syllabi, the linguistic competencies, which I'm not rejecting them. This is part of our job. I do it all the time, but maybe we need to have another different perspective, a more human one, more collaborative one as well. So to be able to build the trust and motivate our students more.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
The human touch. Thank you, George. Maria Laura.
Yes. How nice. I am enjoying just listening to you. It's, yes, so thank you. Yes, this is just really so nice to listen to you. And I would like to add, maybe Rachel, you can say, I can start with the first 3 words, and you continue. Be gentle with
your brain.
Yes. You always say be
Yes.
gentle. Be gentle with you, with
Be
your
gentle
brain,
with your
with
brain.
your heart.
Yeah.
Yes, with yourself.
Yeah.
So it's trying students and collaborators, other teachers, not to feel guilty. There's nothing is wrong. We are learning. And so if something doesn't go the way we expected, that's okay. Just we know this is not the way. Now let's change to another one. And so
right.
Every day is different. Every classroom is different. Every interaction is different. So what may have helped us to do something in the right way in the past may not be the same in the future. So we need to get to be flexible. So in order to be flexible, we need to be gentle with
our brains.
Ourselves.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And reinforcing on that, every brain is different.
Mm-hmm.
And honoring that fact is absolutely key, because how all of you interpret the world, your perspective on the learning that we're learning at the moment is going to be totally different to me. And as an educator, it's about finding the way that you are going to learn this, not the way that I'm enforcing this, but the way you interpret it, process it, regurgitate it, and then produce it. That's the important part. And I think a lot of us now are learning to be quieter and to provoke, as George said, be the facilitator, the soundboard, to really get them to be able to feel safe enough to give us their perspective, for them to be able to learn it. So yes, Maria Laura, and yes, that means that we need to be gentle with our brains all the time. Many times with coaching, I always say there's no right or wrong. In a coaching process, it very much is sitting in those moments with the coachee and dancing, and everything will be right because I'll be with that person. There's no script behind it. Now, I have a question for all of you, and a question for the audience as well, just to check in if the audience is still awake out there. What would you like to see coming into education relating to the neuroscience, the brain, the holistic human, the empathy? What do you want to see coming into educational processes? Maria Laura, vamos a empezar contigo. Let's start with you.
Sí, con gusto.
Ladies first this time. Sí, vamos.
Okay, good. Sorry to be so much repetitive, but to say integration. Let's move forward into integration. Because
what does that look like for you?
Because I see that when we work together, we reach out to new things that we could not do alone. And why should we do it alone? So we can reach out to new realities that we could not just imagine before. So integration, with the human value, with the human touch. And I don't know if I don't know if you know this about myself, but it's going to be a very short story. Stories engage, and I hope it engages you as well. I didn't like English when I was a kid. When I saw, yes, I didn't like. I was not
Confessions
doing well
coming
in
out.
English. I didn't like languages when I was a kid. I say, no, this is not my stuff. I make many mistakes. Mom, I want to drop out. No, this is not and I say, and what happened in between? Well, what happened was human life interaction and having the chance of having really very, very good teachers who have taught me with experience, just living, everything is fine. Don't worry. And when I saw the number of mistakes, everything in red, no, it's not, don't, it's doesn't. I say, my God, this is not my field. I say, it's always the same mistake. Don't worry, don't panic. So that's cool down. So that is what I would like to see in the future, in the present, in fact.
Yes, yes.
Yes, so like putting everything that we know together.
Yeah.
Human values. Kids know about that, and we need to learn from them as well. Yes, if they make a mistake, okay, no problem, another game. It will come better next time.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, how would integration look like in practical terms for educators?
Okay, what a question. Well, I believe it would be greater communication among three very, very important key members, let's say, society, teachers, and students. Sometimes, as parents, we don't know what's going on in the classroom. What are you dealing? We know about the content, we know about the syllables, but how are the kids doing? And not just only our kids. In my case, my daughter's friends. How are they doing? How are they coping with different situations? Because my little one, Valentina, is also a key player in their lives. They are classmates, they are friends. So how can we help not only our own kids, but the others? We are a society, we are a community. So that if you tell me what I think when I think about integration, that yes, it's not about our own family, the others.
Yes. And then that interchange of helping, supporting throughout. Love it. Mariella, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Just want to come to Daniel. Daniel, thank you so much. Daniel's saying you're a big fan of target language output and you'd like to see more activities connecting social, emotional content. And yes, language output heavy activities. Absolutely. You know, the biggest one in life is the immersion learning, where we send them into the country. But obviously, that's not possible for many learners, and even less nowadays with pandemic. So totally agree with you, Daniel. And I think there it's also the psychological safety first to get them to come into the target language output activities. So maybe there are two steps to that. Firstly, creating that space and getting them psychologically safe, and then letting rip with definitely focused on and social emotional, so they're expressing emotions as they're going as well. Curtis, maybe you can add to that, and also the question.
Sorry. 10 minutes, about 10 minutes remaining. Después 10 minutos, más o menos.
Okay.
Gracias.
Wow, this is all coming together, because what Laura was talking about, integration, what we've been talking about, attachment, communication, and connection and empathy. I'm seeing it, and also my own kind of big desire for the future classroom is greater recognition of relationships, but less emphasis on teacher-student relationships and more emphasis on student-student relationships is something we don't pay much attention to, how closely the students are bonded. But if we're talking about them being afraid in the classroom of performing and things like giving them the confidence, a lot of that is because they're afraid of their peers, especially in adolescent and college levels. So building relationships between the students, like having the class party on the second day instead of the last day, or doing activities where students can share things with each other at kind of a light level at first, but then deeper and deeper, this biggest problem they had in their life and how they solved it. And there's lots of research on teacher-student relationships. If you do a Google search, that's all that'll come up. But there's a little bit of research that shows that for students that have friends in the same classroom, this is from Galanis and Carmack in 2013, they behave better. They're more willing to participate. They're more willing to share learning about other things with each other, greater willingness to help each other. But contrarily, not having a friend, lower grades, less engaged, worse attendance, poor working memory and focus, and a decline in mental health. And especially that last one, research is showing in Japan and Korea, there's this really dangerous 1-year period in students' lives where the top killer for young people, suicide, goes up this huge amount. Rates of depression go up 3 times. And that year is the last 6 months of high school and the first 6 months of college, when they're under pressure to pass the test, and then they go to a place where they don't know anybody else. And the biggest mediator of that, of keeping students from committing suicide, is not the counseling centers in schools, it's teacher-student and student-student relationships. In almost every case where somebody didn't commit suicide but had that feeling, rates of depression are 20% in that period. It was because of a teacher or peers.
Yeah.
So the connected
Wow.
classroom, more connection between students, recognize that is important too.
Right. So with that sort of question, what would you like to see more of in the future in education relating to the brain? What would you reply?
Just that, just keeping in mind students' kind of internal condition, getting them in the right brain state, and trying to build connections between students as a way to get them in the right kind of brain for learning.
Yes, and I love that word, brain state.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks, Terry.
and that would take me into the ecstasy of brain waves, and we'd start talking about beta and alpha and theta, but we've only got 5 minutes left, so let's go to George. George, what would you like to see coming out?
Okay, as closing remarks and punchlines, I know that most of you, obviously, you may have traveled with a plane, and you may have seen this sign that in case of an emergency, first put your mask and then help the children. And it was quite recently that I wondered why this is happening. And obviously, it's because when you're feeling well, it's then when you will be able to help the people that need you. So that would be my first punchline for today. Take care of yourself. And obviously, you know what makes you feel good, because if you don't feel good for a reason, you won't be able to help the people around you, and in your case, your students. And by taking good care of yourself, I mean anything from taking a walk, taking care of your diet, visit maybe a beauty institute, whatever makes you really feel good. You define this. The second for me is what we said in the beginning, self-regulation, regulation and reflection. Stop and think for a minute, what you really want. Here in 75 minutes, we talked about so many different paths. Maybe we simply indicated them, pointed them out: neuroscience, positive psychology, philosophy, brain, collaboration. Pick what you really want and feel that you can contribute for yourself and for the others. And the third one is one of my favorite American phrases: get your pants dirty, go in the front line, take action, share, convey. And this is where what all the panelists said about collaboration, empathy, compassion, about how you can share with your students. After being a parent for 16 years, I realized that preaching and talking doesn't work. And the last 5 years that I'm becoming a role model for my kids, I have seen through the mirror neurons that Mariella mentioned that now they follow the example. And I think our motto as teachers should be make them feel the incredible lightness of learning. And it's truly a lightness because everything is out there, everything is, we have access. So let's go grab them and enjoy this process again. As facilitators, we need to be able to show this path through our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, George, I do want to say as a British person here that get your pants dirty in British English doesn't work the same. So
oh my God, sorry.
We may have a problem here. we may have a problem. So we'll take it with the American.
Get your hands dirty.
Thank you.
No,
thank you.
I heard this from an American in a real dialogue context. It was actually, you remember, it was one of our panels, one of the courses we had, but I won't say the name anyway.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, just a little bit of a joke there. And
maybe get your boots dirty. I don't know.
We'll stick with hands. I do want to say thank you, and just want to say, Namiko, you wish there were more spaces for learners to be inspired, create, take apart things, put them back in the way they think they work. Absolutely, absolutely, and empowering learners. And George, you've just hit upon something that the other day I was saying. Definitely, learning is a joy. And for me, I think the secret to agelessness is lifelong learning. That's the key to agelessness in life, just that we are lifelong learning. And what we need to be doing is giving our children, adolescents, everybody that message that learning is for life. And yes, we're doing it. We're the role models. We're coming into old age pensioner status and we're still learning. We're still doing, and we're still doing crazy things because now we know how the brain works, and we know that, yes, we can train the brain. Picking up as well, George, what you're saying, taking care of our brains, I think, is key. And you said taking care of ourselves, but I think it is taking care of our brains, because if we take care of our brains, then everything else kind of functions. And just to share with all of you that I am actually taking care of my brain this weekend, and I'm having a weekend in a monastery. And that is why you probably see me looking down, because I'm sitting on my monastery bed with my white walls at the back. And I've been allowed to come out of the teachings that we're doing to be with you here in Korea. And as soon as we finish, I'm going back to my little bit of sanctuary here to take care of my brain. So yes, what do each of us need to get that brain space? The more brain space, the more creative we can be and we can get. And I'm going to throw back the key words from today. We started off with awareness. We also had attachment. We had effective communication. We had compassion. We had integration. We had brain states. And I do think, all of this, as Mariella said, has really come together in 75 minutes in the most beautiful way. And I want to say thank you to the audience for sticking with us for all these 75 minutes, for being with us. Do connect with each and every one of us. If you have any questions, if you want to know anything else, we're happy to orientate, steer, and give whatever information you all need. Final words from our panelists. Maria Laura, your final words to everybody today.
Stay connected after this. Yes, let's continue sharing ideas, sharing our experiences, coming up with new things. Everything is so nice, and enjoy the way, enjoy the learning process, the way. And it's not only my journey, it is our journey. So when we enjoy that, there is no limit. So yes, those are my final words. And thank you very much.
Maria Laura, thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Curtis, final words for today.
Yeah, just some quick ones. We put our email addresses in the chat, so feel free to copy those. You can save the chat by clicking on those three little dots. Daniel Bailey, I'd like to hear from you, and Hamin too, and actually everybody. And Andy Webster, you guys really look like a lot like each other, like the perfect couple. When you tip your heads to the left, both of you do it at the same time. So it's been fun to watch you too. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, fantastic. And actually, Curtis, you've just reminded me, my apologies. You just reminded me to do a quick, I'm not sure if it's sharing. I'm trying to do a quick share of the email addresses in one place. So let me just do that while, firstly, I'm going to say, Curtis, thank you. It's always a pleasure. And, you know, this is the third panel that we've all done together. And I just think we're like family here. So, George, final words for today.
Enjoy the incredible lightness of learning that is here, scientifically proved. There is an infinite capacity for storage. So never think that your brain is cramped. It may be simply temporarily stuck. So give it another kick and go on, because this can go on forever as an enjoyment. Enjoy. Thank you.
George, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to everybody. I'm going to stop the share so we get everybody on the screen. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for being there. David, thank you for being our beautiful host. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you.
To close.
Thank you. All I need to do right now is ask everybody to unmute their microphones and give a rousing round of applause to the brain transformers that graced us with their conversation, their discussion. So big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And
thank you.
I am now stopping the recording.